There are 5 main methods of factoring. Greatest common factor, GCF. And we always try to do that in every problem. We can't always do it, but we always try to do it. Now, most of the times that's just to mentally look at it and see if they have anything in common. Our second is grouping, which is 4 more terms. The third one is 3 terms, PSD method, and that's when it's of the form x squared plus bx plus c. There's no number in front of the x squared. Key number is 3 terms again, and it's when it's of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. You have a number in front of your x squared. And then difference 2 squares is 2 terms of the minus tringent, though it doesn't have to be terms, which you'll see later in that video. In this video, we're taking a look at grouping. Grouping is when you got 4 more terms. So let's look at this problem. There's actually three different types of grouping, but we're just going to focus on the very basic grouping in this video. Okay, first thing we look for is GCF. Some of them have 3 in common, some of them have an A, some have X, some have Y, but if I look at all 4 terms, they have nothing in common. So there's no GCF. 4 more terms, you have no choice. You have to use grouping. With grouping, we'll group the first 2 terms together, group the last 2 terms together. Now, if I just look at the first group right here, these first 2 terms, I look for the GCF of these. Well, they both have an X in common, so I can factor out an X, and that gives us 3 plus A. Now, if I look at my second group, they both have a Y, and this is an A, not a 9. So they both have a Y, and my first term is negative, so I'll factor out a negative Y. Well, that negative is gone, that Y is gone, so that leaves us 3. That negative is gone, that Y is gone, so that leaves us plus A. Now, our goal with grouping is to get this parentheses right here the same as this parentheses, which they are, so I'll factor out a 3 plus A. And to decide what goes in your second set of parentheses, you now cross out the 3 plus A's. Now, what isn't crossed out is what goes over here, which would be X minus Y. And that's our answer. Let's take a look at another example. We've got 4A squared minus 28A minus 8A plus 56. And we want to factor by grouping. First thing I notice though, 4, 28, 8, and 56 are all divisible by 4. So I can factor out GCF first. Now factor means divide out. 4 divided by 4 is 1 with an A squared, minus 28 divided by 4 is 7 with an A, minus 8 divided by 4 is 2 with an A, plus 56 divided by 4 is 14. Okay. Now I can get rid of the 1, but I'll get rid of that in the next step. If I'm looking at what's inside of the parentheses, I got 4 more terms. Well, we have to use grouping. So I group first 2 terms together, group last 2 terms together. Now the 4 doesn't change anything. We just keep carrying it down out in front. I'll change that to bracket just so I don't get it mixed up with the parentheses I'll have in here. If I look at my first group, I see they have an A in common, so I'll factor out an A. And that gives us A minus 7. Now our second group, it looks like they're both divisible by 2, and my first term is negative. Remember, if your first term is negative, you always factor out a negative. So we'll factor out a negative 2. Negative 2 is gone, gives us A, and 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7. Again, our goal was to get this parentheses the same as this one, which it is. 4 just keeps carrying down. Now we'll put the A minus 7 out in front. And to decide what goes in your second set of parentheses, you can cross out these A minus 7s. And what isn't crossed out is what goes right here, which would be A minus 2. And that's our answer. Let's take a look at one more. We got 36x squared minus 18xy minus 4xy plus 2y squared. Okay. First thing is GCF. Some have X's, some have Y's, but I do notice not all of them do though. I do notice that all the numbers appear to be divisible by 2, so I can factor out a 2, the GCF. 36 divided by 2 is 18, x squared, minus 18 divided by 2 is 9, xy, minus 4 divided by 2 is 2xy, plus, that 2 is gone, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so 1 y squared is just y squared. Now, looks like they have nothing else in common, so I look at what's inside the parentheses here, 4 more terms. That tells us we have to try grouping. So group first 2 terms together, group last 2 terms together. 2 carries down. Looking at my first group here, they're both 18 and 9 both divisible by 9. And this has 2 x's, this has 1 x, so I can factor out an x. Remember, it's always the one with the smallest exponent. Well, 18 divided by 9 is 2. We had 2 x's pulled one away, so that leaves a single x. Minus, that 9's gone, that x is gone, so we're left with y. Now looking at our second group here, it looks like they both have a y, and my first term's negative. Remember, if your first term's negative, you always factor out negative. So factor out a negative y. That negative's gone, that y is gone, so we're left with 2x. When you divide by a negative, when you factor out a negative, flips signs, so that becomes a negative. And we had 2 y's, we took one away, so that leaves us a single y. Our goal was to get this parentheses same as that, and it is. And so we're going to factor out a 2x minus y. And to see what goes in your second set of parentheses, you can come up here and you can cross out the 2x minus y's. And that leaves us 9x minus y. And that's our answer. Like I said, this is a simpler type of grouping. That's what you'll see mostly in college algebra, though. The more tricky type, you may see 1 or 2 in an entire book. Of course, it depends upon your textbook. The few that I've looked at, though, they pretty well stick to the basic type you've seen in these 3 examples.